Hey guys! I hope everybody had a really happy new year and is having a great 2025 so far. I actually spent the last few days getting over a cold of some sort, so I'm sorry if my voice sounds like death right now. But I wanted to do some experimenting with painting different eyes, and I thought it might be cool to show you guys that process while also talking about how I typically go about painting eyes and some stylization tips in general. I think eyes are one of the more important parts of developing your style. I feel like I can immediately tell who painted something just based on how the eyes look. And just to show you guys, I have a whole reference board here of some different eye styles that I pulled from Pinterest. I'm gonna try and experiment with some of these ideas and put them into my own style kind of as we go along. But if you're trying to figure out a style of painting eyes that you like and want to do, I highly recommend looking for some inspiration to help you. It's also helpful for seeing patterns that other artists are doing to kind of give you a more realistic feel in your eyes. And yeah, so I have a few different eyes here, and I'm just going to quickly put down some basic colors. One thing I want to point out is that when you're painting the whites of the eyes, they're not actually pure white. And you can actually see in all of the references that I pulled, none of the artists use pure white for the eye whites. So I like to take a more of a grayish blue and just lightly paint it in here. By not picking pure white, it's actually going to help us later when we add highlights, because that'll help the highlights stand out if they're the whitest part. And once I've got my basic colors down and some basic shading around the eyes, I'm going to start with this brown eye over here and just start darkening the lines of the eye. And another tip I have for you is if you're going for this sort of painterly type style, make sure that your brush has some opacity to it so that when you apply less pressure, you can get more variance in your colors and your brush strokes. This just helps give that like painted look. And once I start coloring the eye, I tend to start from dark to light. So I've just found this to be the easiest way to build up the colors of the eye. And I like to start with really desaturated colors and then move to more saturated as I go along. I find this helps make the eye colors pop and give them a lot of life really easily. Another thing that I noticed while I was doing this exercise is that all of these eyes have this sort of reddish tint underneath the eyes that I actually have never really done in when I paint eyes before. So I think I'm going to try implementing this and just see how it looks. This is another reason why it's important to study from other artists and look at references and just try experimenting from time to time. Looking back, I think adding this like red under the eyes like this actually gives it a lot more of a realistic feel, which was actually really cool. So yeah. And now I'm going to start adding highlights to this eye. This is where I really want to experiment and try something different because I found some of these styles use like sparkles. Typically, I just do like a dot for the highlight, and I wanted to try that. So I'm going to do that here. And I'm also going to I've also seen some of these artists add like highlights on the top and bottom of the eyelids. And yeah, I'm going to try that here. And then onto the second eye, I'm going to try a different method for the pupil. This time I don't want it to fade into the top of the eye, and I want it to sort of stand alone in the center. I do want to play around with the shape, like maybe make it a heart or something. I do want to point out that whenever you're shading the eyes, the top half is going to be darker than the bottom. And to show you why that is really quickly, I have the side profile of an eye here, and you can see that the eyelid is actually coming over the eye, right? Like that's what makes sense. And so whenever the light is hitting it, there's going to be a little bit of occlusion there, which means that there's not going to be any light touching it there. So that's why there's this sort of like dark line and dark shadow at the very top of eyes like that. I hope that makes sense. And yeah, and you can see that the eyeball is also slightly curved. And so that's just something to kind of keep in mind whenever you're shading and adding highlights, is to kind of keep in mind that it should be slightly curved, and the way that you highlight is gonna reflect that. I think I'm good with this one. And for this top one, this third eye, I want to try something different with the coloring style. I'm gonna try maybe just doing 2 different colors for the eye, and instead of just doing like a dark or like a black color for the pupil, I'm going to try doing a different color and just see how it looks. Something that I want to keep in mind while I'm trying out these different techniques is I still want to have some soft and hard edges. You'll notice even these eyes that have like a lot of softness, they contrast really well with the sharpness of the highlight edges. So that's kind of what we want, is like some softness paired with some hard edges, and you can go extreme. I find that having like a balance of that in some way helps it contrast really well. Okay, so just to kind of recap really quick, just for like basic painting of an eye, for me personally, for my process, I like to start by darkening the defining lines. So this would be like the eyelashes and the eye shape. And then the second thing is to kind of build up your colors and build them up in layers. I tend to work from dark to light. So like you could see with that first eye, I started with a very dark color and then slowly added my lighter colors on top. As I added those lighter colors, I like to make them more saturated because it helps that color stand out. And then once I have that, I like to add my highlight. And like I was doing in this video, you can play around with it. You can just do dots, or you can do like sparkles for the highlight, or you can add highlights to the like top of the eyelids. There's a lot of ways to play around with it, and yeah, just experiment and see what you like. That's pretty much gonna do it for this video, you guys. I hope you guys found this helpful. I hope 2025 is an amazing year for all of us, and we can continue to grow as artists and just make some amazing art. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.